Good morning, and thank you guys for having me here today. Single entry ewe lamb for our feeder class, and one for its maturity. I think that has plenty of depth of body and center rib, and I especially appreciate its underline, how it gets progressively deep to its rear rib and flank. If I want to really be critical on this one, I got to get more on top of it in terms of muscle on either end of its spine. We'd like to just work some more muscle down its top and get some another shot from the rear view as well. But one, I really like the depth in it. Let's give our single entry for our first class a big round of applause.
We'll start our first class, class 1 of our lightweight market lambs. We have Morgan Brandon. We have Willow Haynes Thornton. Come on in. And Gabe Wilson.
For our first class in the market show here, I think there's one on my right side here that I'd really track to pretty easily. It's the widest chested one and the one who's the most opened up in its center rib and body, and it's definitely the one here today that touches with the most tone and dimension, but also the one that has the most acceptable finish today as well, and one I really like on the side in terms of quality. It's a level design one who gets progressively deep to its rear rib and flank, and I certainly appreciate its wedge shape when you get on top of it. What separates 2 and 3 for me is that finish factor here today, that we're in these lightweight lambs. And the second place young lady sheep in the middle is one you certainly appreciate for its size. It does have some finish on it, and we'd like to maybe add some more, but one who's got some depth of body and some rib shape as well. And when you get on top of it, it touches with some tone and dimension down its rack. Now, not quite as much tone and dimension as our sheep coming in 3 today. Here's a really hard touch in one, and one you'd just really like to see some more weight on it. Here's a nice sheep in terms of muscle pattern. It touches with a lot of tone. It's tight-hided, and one who's upright in terms of its rack shape. But we just have to add some finish onto this one. He's too bare over his last rib, and that's where what really makes this one fall apart. When you get on the side of it, he too needs to drop in his flank, and he just needs to be better out of the top of his hip. However, on the young lady holding this one, I do have to do a showmanship standout for each class, and this young lady in third place is going to be our showmanship standout today for this first class, because she was the most consistent in terms of keeping her feet and legs set up, and also the one who just kept that sheep's head up and kept it driving the whole time. Let's give her a round of applause.
Good job. Gabe and Willow, if you would like just to hang out so you can come back for the championship lightweight. Class 2 in our lightweight division. We have Katie Wigant. We have Vincent Hayes Thorson, Tate O'Leary, Emily Leeper, Isabel Richards, and Abigail Richards.
As we get into our second class of Market Lambs here, things are really heating up in this class, and I'm not just talking about the inside of my mask. Boom, boom. We're going to start with the young lady who's out by herself there with a really nice weather, who's got the most club lamb look. For me, who's just super level on his top line, he's good in terms of the way his neck and chest laying up front, and one you certainly appreciate in terms of balance. And once you get your hands on him, he's equally impressive. He's probably the most shapely and most muscular one out here, except for maybe the one in second. Also touches with a ton of tone. Who maybe even a notch longer and more extended on the profile. He's just a notch deeper chested for me and a notch off the top of his hip. And I think that's what separates that pair, but a really close top in there for me. I think a logical third place is a really nice profile on Weather, who's long and extended, and one you certainly appreciate the way his chest lays in. He just doesn't have as much stuff in terms of muscularity over his top line, and one who just you'd like to add a notch more to work his way into that top pair. The next sheep in line is one who maybe you describe as like a meat and potatoes type of sheep, who's one who doesn't really have necessarily major flaws, but one who doesn't wow you in terms of muscularity either. We just like to get some more expression down its top line, and one who we certainly would like to just add some more to from the rear view in terms of shape and muscularity as well, but a really nice one there. And this one's also going to be our showmanship standout. I really think this young lady in FFA did a nice job of getting this one set up, and she was really complete in the way she showed that one. So I want to congratulate and commend her on that. The next young man in line has got a sheep who's really long-bodied and extended on the profile, and I think that actually works against him in this weight class because he just doesn't have as much width and dimension when you add that into him. Here's what I'd like to see with some more time on feed, and I'd like to see that rib cage expand a little bit more and give that guy some more time to really develop. Same can be said for the young man rounding out the class today. I think the difference in that pair is that this one is probably a little bit further along in his maturity pattern. He's starting to get a little bit deeper chested and a little bit off and rounder in terms of his hips. So I think this one's maybe not made as well, and he's getting to be deeper in his pattern. And he just doesn't have as much to him in terms of muscularity, so that's why he's going to round out the class today.
Congratulations, good job. Top two will come back for our lightweight championship. And Jonas Murders. Class 4 of the medium weights need to be ready. Thank you.
I think there's one standout, and that's the Ulam on the far side. She's just one for me who's got the look from the side, and when you get on top of her, she's definitely one who's got the rack shape and muscularity down her top line. She's one who's really big and bold from the rear view as well, and's got plenty of outer stifle shape and in lower leg as well. One in terms of showmanship, I'd just like to get her top down just a notch, but a really nice sheep to go ahead and start off this class. In second and third, I think you can flip flop and debate it and not be wrong either way. I'm going to go ahead and opt to use the Blue Lamb. He's one who's a notch longer bodied here and one who just touches with more tone and dimension down his top line. And he's probably the tightest heighted thing in here. He just doesn't have quite enough finish here today. And that can be the same said for the one coming in at third here today. Here's one that maybe has more depth on the side view, but one who maybe has some more shoulder to him as well, and he's maybe not quite as good at the top of his hip either. And so I think we can be pick those two apart and probably interchange them several different ways. That's the way the cards are going to fall today, though. However, the young man coming in third with his sheep is going to come in first with showmanship. I think he really worked hard out here. He kept that one's top line down. He kept its head up, and he was particular about his feet and legs as he was getting out there. So I think he did an excellent job there. Let's give these guys a round of applause.
Congratulations. Dominic and Elizabeth, if you want to take a breather and then come back for the championship round. We'll have our lightweight championship round here next after these guys catch their breath. Okay, so this is our lightweight championship round. We have Gabriel Wilson, Emily Leeper, Dominic Kessel, Willow Hayes Thorson, Abigail Richards, and Elizabeth Hale.
class winners real quick. The ULAM out of the first class is one who maybe is the most wedge shaped on the side. And what I mean from that is she might be the tucked up and neatest in terms of her chest and get the most progressively deep as she comes on back. And she follows suit when you get on top of her. She's that same wedge shape as well. And we really appreciate her on the side. The problem with her is how she handles her hind leg. She has got a little bit of extra set. And I think we could probably add some stoutness to her as well. And certainly in terms of her age and day of maturity pattern, we'd like to blow her up in terms of her rib design, but that could probably be fixed with feed over time. The one out of the second class is one who really profiles well as well, who's really level down its top line. Maybe we could fix it in terms of its loin junction there, and one who too just doesn't come down quite perfectly square on its hind leg, and it probably bows out a little bit as you get behind it. We just like to change that in terms of structural correctness there, but a really nice weather there, and maybe one who even packs more power and punch as he moves up in terms of weight class, who's even more muscular down his top line and more robust in terms of his rib design as well. And then another ULAM out of the third class, who's really big and bold in terms of her center body, and one who certainly is big and bold down its top line as well. When you get off to the side of it, it's one who's level down its top line, and one who is correct in terms of its hind leg structure. So I think that one really is complete and puts it all together. So that's going to be our lightweight champion today. As we move into reserve, the second place out of that one's class is one we certainly appreciated in terms of a length of body and touch and tone, but unfortunately it can't match the power of our class winner from class two. The young lady's gonna have a reserve champion lightweight.
Congratulations to our champion lightweight market lamb, Dominic Kessel, and our reserve champion, Emily Leeper. Okay, we'll move into our medium weight lambs with class 4. We have Julia Brandon, Gabby Baza, Hillary Bush, Allison Gregory, Brooke Bush, and Tenley Towell.
from top to bottom in terms of consistency, I mean, we have six weathers in the ring here. We have six girls who are showing the heck out of them, and I think six that are deserving in terms of finishing where they're at in point today to get blue ribbons. So this is a really consistent and awesome class for me to get out here and judge, and that's probably why I took the extra minute to get this one done. I think there's subtle difference in them, and I think you could do some different things with how you sort them. I think the most fault-free one for me today is the young lady's weather on the far end. One, you can't just really pick a major hole in this one. He comes to the ground square on all four. He touches with tone and dimension down his top. He's tight-heighted. He's good in terms of the way his hind legs made, and he sets down square on the ground. And you get on to the side of him, off to the side of him, and he profiles good as well. I'd like to get his head up just a notch, and then maybe get him stuck in terms of bracing him, just to push him a little bit harder. But an awfully nice one to win this class. The young lady coming in second excels in terms of showmanship, and she is going to be our showmanship standout from this class. One who keeps that one's head up and keeps it on the drive. Maybe this weather's not the widest chested one in class, but one who certainly touches with tone and dimension down his top line. He's gotten shape and dimension from the rear view as well. We just like him to set a little square on his hind leg, maybe be a little bit stouter in terms of his bone work, and as I said, widen him up in terms of his chest floor. The one who does have the width in terms of chest is the weather here in 3. One who really is extreme in several ways. One who's definitely the lowest to the ground and lowest at the point of its shoulder in this class, which actually alleviates some problems for it because it allows it to be bigger and bolder in terms of its center rib and body, and that's what gets it so high in the class. One who just touches with an immense amount of tone and dimension down his top line, and who's extremely wide as well. We'd like to just change it, especially in terms of its height, really fix that on that one and tighten it up. And one who could just be better in terms of its loin edge and maybe some even more from the rear view in terms of outer stifle shape, but a really nice sheep coming in third place today. The one coming in fourth is one who's definitely longer bodied and more extended on the profile, but one who's ewe-necked and more open to the point of its shoulder, one who's deeper in terms of its breastplate, and we'd like to fix it at the top of its rump, but one who certainly's got some muscle shape, got some dimension in body, and certainly excels the bottom two from the rear view. The one coming in fifth today is one who you really like on the profile, who's almost deceivingly nice on the profile. It's the rear view that disappoints you on this one. It hawks in on its hind leg, and one who just needs some more outer shape and stifle. And the one in sixth today, one who's really finished well, one who's deep bodied and deep flanked, and we certainly appreciate that. One who too is open at the point of his shoulder and ewe-necked, and one who just needs to be fixed at the top of its rump. But it's fed right, finished right, and I think this class should be definitely worthy of a round of applause.
Good job to our class 4. Henley and Brooke, if you want to stay in the shade so you can come back in later. Okay, we got class 5. We have Taylor Towell, Grace Fredericks, Sydney Bush, Ethan Bush, Jaden Scott, and Jaden McFarland.
For our second class of middleweights, I think another tough class, maybe not as consistent as the one before, but definitely some differences in terms of types and kind in here. And I think I'm going to go with the all-around one for me on the far end, one who just profiles really well, one who you certainly like the tone and dimension of it when you get on top of it. It's tight-heighted, one who's good in terms of its center rib and body, and one who's wide-chested as well. Does it come with as much width as the one in second? No, but I think this one puts together the most good in terms of the complete package. I'd like to really fix him if anywhere on his rear pastor, and I think that's one of its biggest flaws, but a really nice sheep to go ahead and start off the class. The weathers in second and third are two really similar in terms of types and kind. They're two that are lower at the point of their shoulder and are lower to the ground, and two that come with a bunch of thickness. And the one in second is one who's really stout bone and opened up in his center body. We would like to just make it a little bit bigger statured if I was going to be critical of it, and just make it a notch better profiling, like our class winner in terms of extension up front, in terms of just being square and level made, but one you certainly appreciate in terms of its overall width and dimension. The one in third here today is, like I said, very similar to the one in second. The difference is this one's not quite as well made on the side. He's a little bit deeper in terms of his chest and breastplate, and one you would just like to fix in that shoulder, but one you certainly appreciate in terms of its overall width and dimension when you get your hands on it over the top. The one in fourth here today is one who touches with some tone when you get on top of it, but one who, for me, falls apart in terms of its profile. It breaks a little bit behind its shoulder, its U-neck, and one who's just not perfect at the top of its rump. Either we'd like to add some dimension to this one. However, the young lady holding it is doing an outstanding job. She's going to be our showmanship standout for this class. The one in fifth here today is one who is extended on the profile, and one who maybe is one of the stouter boned ones in class. But the problem is when you get on either end of it, it's one who just doesn't have as much dimension in terms of its rib design. One who's flatter in the outer part of its rib, it's narrower made and narrower off either end. So we'd like to fix that about it. But one who's pretty on the profile, and we certainly appreciated it in terms of stoutness of bonework. The one who maybe falls out in terms of consistency is the last one for me. One who certainly you appreciate in terms of its overall depth of rib, but the one who certainly handles with the least amount of muscle mass today. So it's going to be last. However, one who certainly has some quality from the young man. And I hope it brings a ton of money at the sale. All right. Thank you.
Congratulations. We'll be having Jaden McFarland and Sydney Bush back for the middleweight champion in a few minutes. Good job, everybody. Our next class of middleweight market lamb. We have Dylan Thomas, Seth Colton, Tally Towell, Maya Poland, Tegan Lance, and Ileana Baza.
another good class, and I think a couple on the top that just sort right up for me. And the weather that wins it here today is the complete package. One who's just really good on the profile, one who's good in terms of his stoutness of bone, and one you really like in terms of leveliness off his top line. I'm excited to see this one come back for the champion drive. The weather in second is one who sorts up for me, one who just isn't really doesn't have very many major flaws. One who's really good in terms of his center rib and body. He's opened up in his chest floor, and one who's extended as well on the side is one we could maybe change in terms of the way his shoulder and breastplate lay in, and one who just isn't quite perfect at the top of his rump either. We really like that one though coming in second. The one here in third today is one who's awfully wide and one who's really impressive when you get your hands on it. It certainly measures big over its rack shape, and one who's good in terms of its loin as well. One who too we could fix in terms of its chest and the way it lays in, and maybe just make it a notch taller in the way it's made and more extended on the side. One who certainly is extended is the one coming in fourth here today. One you certainly appreciate in terms of its overall length of body, and when you get your hands on it, this is a round rib, big racked one as well. It's the problem when you get on the side of it. Its profile is off. One who's taller in terms of its hooks and the way its pins are made. We'd like to just fix it in terms of the way its hip is designed, and one who certainly just could be a notch prettier on the profile as well. One you certainly can appreciate in terms of its overall profile is the one coming in fifth, but one who just doesn't have as much dimension when you get your hands on it. It's one who's flatter in terms of its rib design and lower in terms of the way its chest is made. One we'd just like to fix there. And a sheep rounding out the class is one who's just the narrowest in terms of its contemporaries here in class, and one who's certainly the frailest in terms of bone work, but one who has some muscle shape and dimension when you get on top of it. And coming in third here today, she'll be our showmanship standout for this class.
Tally and Illy, you'll be coming back around for the championship round, so take a breather and then line up again. We have Tenley Towel, Jaden McFarland, Tally Towel, Brooke Bush, and Sydney Bush. And Elizabeth, oh no, sorry, Ileana Baza.
a really nice set of lambs coming back for our middleweight champion drive. And I think it really, once I analyze them, it comes down to two for me that are the most complete in terms of their build, and they're the two young ladies on this end. And I think you could go either way. The one to my left is one who's just a notch better in terms of its skeleton and the way it comes to the ground. It's better in terms of the way it sets down on its hind leg. When you get behind this one, you'd like it to have some more twist and outer leg shape, and I think that's where the one in front of it excels. One who's just a notch bigger butted there and more impressive from the rear view. However, he doesn't set down quite as square on his rear hock. It's a market show. We're going to go with the one who's just a notch bigger butted today. The young lady right here is going to be our champion middleweight.
Congratulations to our middleweight champions. We have Jaden McFarland and Tenley Tao. We'll move right into our heavyweight classes. We'll start with class 7. We have Eason Jacobs, Mary Jane Povis, Anna Boyle, Lexi Heckathorn, Bailey Anderson, and Joshua Gregory.
there's three weathers in here that just sort up right from the beginning, and I think one who's a standout of those three who easily wins the class. He's up headed and extended up front. Young lady does an awesome job of presenting him. She's also going to be our showmanship standout for this class. In second and third, I think you can have some debate whether or not which one you of these two you like. I think for me, the one in second is just a notch better in terms of his maturity. Today, probably a notch better in terms of his finish and a notch better of the way he profiles here today. One you certainly appreciate in terms of stoutness of bone work is the one here in three. Here's a big-footed sucker who's really wide and extended as well. He's just getting a little bit lower in terms of the way his breastplate lays in, a little bit more open on the top of his shoulder. In terms of showmanship, let's get his head up just a notch more, but a really nice one coming in third place here today. The one in fourth just gets outpowered by the three above it. One who's just narrower in terms of its lower skeleton. We'd like to widen it out, make it bolder, and put some more dimension on the foot that it's going to step on. The one in fifth today is one who's certainly has got some rib shape and dimension, but in terms of skeletal quality, that's where he falls off for me. One who's bolder in the terms of his shoulder and slopes and gets rounder in terms of his dock. And the one rounding out the class is one who's certainly long-bodied, but one who's just too frail in terms of its bone work to me, and too flat-sided, and one who just needs to really work its spine down in terms of its top line and have some more muscle shape when we get over it, but one who's certainly got some length and dimension.
We'll be having Bailey Anderson and Anna Boyle come back in later. This is class 8 of our heavyweights. We have Sage Smith, Tegan Towell, Bryce Simmons, Amber Simmons, and Haley Smith.
I think another close class. There's not necessarily one in here that just reaches out and grabs you, but one who I can tie to you on the top end, who's probably still the freshest in terms of his composition when you get your hands on it. Maybe one we can fix over his loin edge, and one we can just stouten up. And to be awfully critical, we could. He's probably got an extra vertebrae on the end there, but one you certainly appreciate in terms of his overall width and touch and tone. The young lady presenting him is also going to be our showmanship standout for this class. In second, one you certainly appreciate on the profile. Here's a big-footed one who's extended, one who ties into the top of his shoulder. Good. One who just gets a little bit weaker and down his top line, and one who just maybe is a notch past his prime in terms of his endpoint. And we're getting into those bigger sizes, and so that's what we're going to start seeing more of. The one here in third today is one who too is extended on the profile. He's good in terms of the way he lays into his chest floor, and one who's really stout boned. But one from the rear view, we just like to add a shot more muscle to him for how big he is. The young man's is one we certainly appreciate on the profile. One who looks really good on the side. Unfortunately, compared to the rest of it, here's one of the frailer boned ones who's just narrower chested, and we'd just like it to be bolder and more expansive as we get on either end of it. And the one rounding out the class who follows suit, one who could just be a notch bigger boned. We certainly appreciate it in terms of overall rib depth and mass, but one who just could be a notch flashier and bigger bone to get its way further up in the class.
Good job, Class 8. We'll have Tegan Towell and Haley Smith come back in. We have our final class of heavyweight lambs. We have Brianne Heckthorn, Connor Thornton, and James Lang.
As I said in the last class, we are kind of getting to a point where we're overdone on some of these, especially in the last couple of years. The Club Lamb genetics have gotten smaller at the point of their shoulder, so that the bigger we get them, the fatter they are, essentially. And one to leads off is the one who probably is the most compositionally correct in terms of finish here today, and that's what's going to make that weather win. Is he the best in terms of the way he sets down on his pass turn? No, but I think for the one that we can really point the most good to today when you get your hands on him, it's that one. Now, the one here in second is one who's certainly bold and robust in terms of its center rib and body, but I question how much of that is just finish at this point. One who just handles it awfully soft when you get your hands on it, and who doesn't have the true width and dimension as you get underneath it. But one that the young man certainly didn't keep a head out of a feed bucket, so we appreciate him for that. And the one coming in third place is the same story. One who's really uh, one who's kind of lower to the ground, but one who certainly is probably overdone in terms of the way it's made here today. The difference between it and the two above it is it's probably a little bit more open in terms of its shoulder, and isn't quite as shapely when you get your hands on it. And that's what's going to basically decide this class, but three good ones to round out our show. Let's give them a round of applause. Our showmanship standout, oh, I'm going to interrupt your applause because I forgot the showmanship standout again, is going to be the young lady who won the class. Awesome job to her. Now you can applause. No more pause.
Congratulations. We'll have Brianne and Connor come back in. So take a break and we'll get started on our heavyweight championship round. Bailey Anderson, Tegan Towell, Brianne Heckathorn, Lexi Heckathorn, Haley Smith, and Connor Thornton.
our heavyweight champion division. And I think if you listen to me on the mic earlier when I was talking about him, there was one sheep that I didn't say a lot, and other than I'm excited to see it again. And I think it's a standout in terms of the way you get your hands on it and the way it profiles us young ladies, whether here on the end, he's going to be your champion heavyweight. As it comes for second place, I think it gets a little bit tougher, and I think there's a couple of ones that definitely could be in the conversation. But I'm going to follow up with the one that was second to it in class. Go ahead and come on out. You'll be second place.
All right, congratulations to our heavyweight Market Lamb champion, Bailey Anderson, and our reserve champion, Lexus Heckathorn. We will let those girls take a slight break, and then we will do our grand champion Market Lamb class. Class for overall champion Market Lamb here at the Jefferson County Fair. We have Dominic Hessel, Jaden McFarland, Bailey Anderson, Emily Leeper, Tenley Towell, and Alexis Heckathorn.
and I guess putting up with the situation we're in and making the best of it. And I think it's been a really great show up until this point. I was trying to remember back. I judged the goat show here maybe in 2012, and the quality of the stock here at this county has gotten so much better in that 8 year span. I can't believe it, and I think the lambs here are going to be competitive with any other county in Oregon once you get the top end of them. A really high quality sheep show, and I'm happy to be here and do it. With that said, I think there's a couple of standouts in the ring. I'm going to go ahead and grab the ribbons and award your grand and reserve champions. Let's give our exhibitors one last round of applause.
Your 2020 Jefferson County Fair Grand Champion, Bailey Anderson. And your reserve champion is Lexi Hecthorn. Congratulations, everybody. Good job. We'll move right into our breeding class.